Joran had delivered many things in his life. Weapons, food, black market tech, even frozen bodies once. But this was different. His ship, the Wren, floated in deep orbit around a dying moon. The stars outside blinked like cold eyes. Inside, the cargo bay 3 crates sat still, locked tight. He had been paid in advance, no questions asked. Just one order: deliver the cargo. Do not open it. Do not speak to it. Do not feel anything. But that last part, do not feel anything, was harder than it used to be. Joran stood in front of the largest crate. It was marked biopassive, alien, handle with care. He frowned. Something had moved inside. A thump. Then a quiet sob. He stepped back. Cargo didn't cry. He tapped his communicator. Vesh, you there? Vesh was his contact on the black market. Cold voice. Always eating something when he talked. Yeah, someone in the crate. So, thought this was a smuggled specimen, not a person. It's a widow and her kid. It's a buyer knows what he's paying for. Joran went quiet. Vesh added, just deliver. No heartstrings, Joran. You know how this works. The line went dead. Joran stared at the crate again. Another small thump. This time he heard a faint voice. It was not in human language, but it sounded tired, afraid. He walked away, paced, cursed under his breath. He had been a soldier once, a good one, but good soldiers follow orders. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He returned to the crate. His fingers hovered over the lock. 1, beep. 2, click. The crate opened. The air inside smelled like dust and fear. Curled in the corner was a woman. Her skin was a soft violet, glowing slightly in the dim light. She looked weak, but her eyes burned. With strength, wrapped around her chest was a child, small, silent, with wide silver eyes. Joran stared. She stared back. He raised his hands. I'm not going to hurt you. She didn't speak, but she pulled the child tighter. He reached into his pocket and tossed a food pack onto the floor. Eat. You're not going anywhere tonight. Then he closed the crate, but this time he left it unlocked. That night, sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the stars. What are you doing, Joran? He whispered to himself. He could dump them, fly away, forget this ever happened. But he did instead. He made a new plan. Changed course. Not toward the buyer, but toward an old mining station he used as a hideout. The next morning, he returned to the crate. The alien woman and her child were sitting up now. The food was gone. He crouched beside them. My name's Joran. I was supposed to sell you, but I'm not doing that. Still no reply. He pointed to the child. What's his name? The woman looked at him, then down at her son. Rain. She whispered. Her voice was soft, but rough, like she hadn't spoken in days. Joran nodded. Rain, that's a good name. Then he pointed at her. And you? She paused. Sira didn't trust him. Not yet. She kept Rain close. Didn't eat when he wasn't in the room. She was watching, measuring, waiting. Joran gave them space, brought more food, blankets, a heater. One time Rain walked up to him and placed a hand on his boot. He looked down. Rain didn't smile. He just stood there, then walked back to Sira. But that touch had stayed with Joran. 2 days. Later, the tracker alarm rang. Someone was looking for them. Joran checked the signal. A bounty alert. His ship's ID had been flagged. They were wanted, dead or alive. He cursed again. They would have to move faster. He walked into the cargo bay. Sira stood. Holding Rain there, hunting us, he said. She didn't answer. I can get you out. I know a place safe, quiet, but we have to leave now. She stared at him for a long moment. Then finally she nodded as they lifted off. Joran caught a glimpse of himself in the glass. A smuggler. A fighter. A man who had once left everything behind. And now he was flying through space. With a widow and her son in his cargo bay, he didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel empty. Asterisk, the stars. Above were quiet, but trouble was moving fast. Joran's ship, the Wren, had just entered a dark sector beyond the regular patrol lines. It was a place smugglers used to hide and fugitives used to disappear now. It was both. In the small cabin near the engine core, Sierra sat with her arms wrapped around Rain, holding him close. The boy hadn't spoken again since he said his name, but he watched everything, especially Joran. Sierra's violet eyes stayed sharp. She had once trusted people. That trust got her husband killed. She wouldn't make that mistake again. Joran paced near the cockpit, jaw tight. His fingers hovered over the nav screen. 2 blinking dots had followed them since yesterday's mall hunter ships. He couldn't see their logos, but he didn't have to. They were hired. Paid to bring the cargo back. He tapped the screen, changing course again. "Don't worry," he muttered. "They'll get tired before I do." But even he wasn't sure if he believed. That later, he brought food to the cabin. Sierra didn't move at first. Then slowly, she took the tray. Her hands were thinner than before. Rain sat in her lap, still quiet, but curious. "I can drop you off at the abandoned mining moon in the Scar Belt," Joran said softly. "It's not much, but it's safe." "Hin." Sierra looked up at him. "You're not taking us to the buyer?" "No. You were paid. I gave it back." That wasn't entirely true. He didn't give it back. He deleted the transfer logs and shut off the buyer's code now. It was broke. But oddly, he didn't care. That night, Joran sat alone in the cockpit. He hadn't been alone like this in a long time with company. Strange how that worked. He pulled out a small photo from his jacket. A woman. A little girl. Both gone now. Rain reminded him of his daughter. Quiet, smart, always watching. And now he had this new weight in his chest. Not guilt. Responsibility suddenly. The alarm blinked red. Incoming signal. One of the hunter ships was closing in. Joran jumped up and ran to the engine controls. "Brace," he shouted down the hall. Sierra hugged Rain tighter. The ship rocked as a missile exploded near the rear wing. They weren't shooting. To kill, they wanted the cargo intact. That made Joran furious. He flipped a switch, powered up a set of hidden boosters, and launched the Wren straight into a frozen gas cloud. The hunter ship followed. Joran grinned. Bad move. Inside the cloud, he cut the engines, powered down the ship completely. They floated dead in the dark. Outside, the hunter ship scanned the fog. Heat sensors wouldn't help here. Joran turned to Rain, who had entered the cockpit silently. "You? Like hiding?" Joran asked. Rain nodded. Joran smiled. "Me too." After an hour, the hunter ship gave up and drifted away. Joran waited 10 more minutes before restarting everything. When the lights returned, Sierra was standing at the door. "You knew they'd chase us, I guessed." "Life already did," he said, walking past her. "Might as well finish it." Later, as Rain slept on a makeshift bed, Sierra sat across from Joran near the engine core. She stared at the warm lights and said quietly, "You don't act like the others." "I used to." "What changed?" He looked at her, then at Rain. "Something small." Sierra tilted her head. "A child," he nodded. "She was my daughter." Sierra went quiet. "What happened?" she asked. Joran swallowed hard. "War happened." She didn't ask more. She just placed her hand on the wall beside her. The metal was warm from the ship's heart. "My world was full of stars," she said. "Now I don't look up anymore." Joran looked at her. Really looked. "You should." "He still does," he said, nodding toward Rain. She followed his gaze, and in that moment, her shoulders softened for the first time. Back in the cockpit, Joran opened his private logs. He recorded a message, no name, no ID. "I broke the contract. Cargo was alive. Not returning them. If you send more hunters, I won't run next time. I'll fight." He paused, then added, "They're not cargo anymore." Somewhere out in space, the buyer received the message and smiled coldly. He tapped a new code into the system. "Activate secondary bounty. Full force. Bring them back or burn the smuggler with them." Back on the Wren, Rain opened his eyes. He walked to the control panel and began drawing with his fingers on the frosted. glass, Sierra noticed. She leaned closer. He had drawn 3 stars and under them, 3 figures holding hands. She touched the glass softly, then whispered, "Family." The ship drifted through silent space. Outside, the stars looked cold, but inside, something was changing. Something small and soft. Like hope quietly waking up, Joran had fixed the rear stabilizer and double-checked the stealth shield. They were safe, for now. The bounty hunters had backed off, but he knew others would come. They always did. He walked down the narrow hallway toward the crew quarters. Not his crew, he didn't call it that. Not yet. Rain was sitting cross-legged on the floor. Near the engine room, he wasn't playing. He wasn't speaking. Just drawing lines, circles, tiny symbols. Over and over again, he had found a piece of old metal paneling, dusted it off, and was scratching marks with a broken circuit wire. Joran paused. Watching the boy didn't look up, just kept drawing. Joran crouched beside him. "What's that?" "Rain?" Didn't answer. Joran tilted his head. "Can you understand me?" Still nothing. But then Rain dragged the wire one more time across the metal. A shape formed. It looked like the ship, 3 stick figures inside it. Joran pointed, "That's us." Rain didn't speak. He just nodded. Sira stood in the hallway, quiet. She had seen the drawings too. She walked over and sat beside her son. "This is how he speaks," she said. Joran nodded slowly. "I've seen war silence people, but this feels different." Sierra touched Rain's shoulder. He used to talk, laugh, sing even. But after they took his father, something closed inside him. "Maybe he's not broken," Joran said. "Maybe he's just waiting." That night, the lights flickered. Minor power loss. Joran went to the control room. Sierra followed. "Ship's getting old," he said. "I've patched it up so many times. It's basically held together with hope." Sierra smiled faintly. It was the first time he had seen it. "Aren't we all?" she said in the quiet after. Joran turned on a soft melody. Through the speakers, something from Earth. A slow song with no words. Just soft instruments. He didn't think much of it. But in the hallway, Rain stopped walking. He listened, then, without warning, he hummed. Sierra froze. So did Joran. The boy was humming the tune. Soft, uncertain, but real. He walked to the cockpit and stood beside Joran, still humming. Joran didn't speak. He just let the song play. After that, Rain changed. Not quickly, but enough. He still didn't use words. But he followed Joran into the engine bay. He passed him tools without asking. He pointed 2 broken parts. He drew shapes on the walls to explain repairs, and at night, he always sat beside his mother when the music played, always humming, Joran. Added something new to the ship, a wall panel near the rear hatch, painted flat white. He handed Rain a set of colored markers. "Draw here," he said. Rain looked at the wall, then at him, and smiled. It was small, but it was the first time. The next day, Sierra stood beside Joran in the control room. "He smiles with you," she said. "I think he likes working with tools, no?" she said, eyes soft. "He likes you." Joran didn't know what to say. Thought about it that night. He had never wanted a crew. Never wanted anyone. On board this ship, too many memories, too much risk. But now there was a child singing in the hall, a mother who no longer looked like a prisoner. He didn't feel like a smuggler anymore. He felt like someone needed, just before sleep. Joran got a private alert on the com screen. Encrypted message. "No name. We know you have the alien widow and her son. We don't want to arrest them. We want to dissect them. Turn them now, or we take the whole ship." Joran stared at the screen. He didn't curse. He didn't panic. He simply stood up and locked every door on the ship. They weren't cargo. They weren't passengers. They were his now, and anyone who tried to take them was going to regret it. Asterisk, the moon they landed on had no name. Just rocks, wind, and an old signal tower. Leaning sideways like a broken finger, Joran knew the place well. A forgotten mining outpost from a war nobody cared to remember. That made it the perfect place to hide. Joran shut off the Wren's outer lights, checked every seal, locked every hatch. Then he sat down and waited. Wasn't running anymore, not with Sira asleep beside her son, not with Rain snoring softly, one hand clutching the corner of the blanket Joran had given him. Outside, the dark sky cracked. 3 ships descended like wolves from the stars. No lights, no warning, just power humming through the cold air. Joran stood in the control room, scanning their formation. He recognized the model. Fast, private, no official tags. Mercenary ships, not government. Bounties gotten expensive. He muttered. He activated the auto-defense turrets. Weak, old, it's unreliable, but maybe they'd buy time. He tapped the shipwide. Comes Sira. Rain. Into the lower deck. Stay quiet. Lock the door. Sira didn't argue. She had seen ships like this before. Years ago when the invasion came to her city. Back when her husband was still alive. Back when Rain still smiled without fear. She picked up Rain and whispered something in their language. He nodded, eyes wide, and followed her outside. The first mercenary landed, tall, armored face hidden behind a thick black visor. He scanned. The rocks then stepped toward the ship. His cum buzzed, confirmed target. Life signs match, widow and hybrid offspring. Human pilot is optional. Optional meant kill if needed. Joran met him at the hatch. He had a plasma rifle in one hand, and his old dog tags in the other. The mercenary raised a hand. Stand down, pilot. This isn't your fight. Joran didn't flinch. It is now. The mercenary chuckled. You can't win. Orders are paid in full. Joran nodded. Then I'll give you a refund. And fired first. The fight exploded. Fast. Turrets lit the ground. Bullets cracked the dust. Joran moved like he had in the war. Sharp, quick, brutal. But there were 3 of them. Too many angles. Too many guns. He ducked behind a crate, breathing hard. Armor burned. Blood on. His arm, in the lower deck, Sira heard everything. Rain clutched her hand, silent but shaking, and she knew it was time. She kissed Rain's forehead and stood. Her eyes glowed softly, not fear. Focus Sira was not just a widow. She had once been a combat healer during the Kyra resistance. She knew how to fight with knowledge, with speed, with the mind. She moved fast. Opened a hidden compartment in the storage wall and grabbed a curved blade made of alien steel, old but sharp. Rain whispered, Mama. She looked at him. Gently, I'll come back. Then she slipped into the shadows. Outside, Joran was cornered. One mercenary aimed at his chest. Last chance smuggler. But just as he pulled the trigger, Sira appeared behind him. One flash of her blade and he dropped, silent before. He could even scream. The second mercenary turned, stunned. Sira was already moving, graceful, quick, deadly. She ducked his punch, slashed his leg, and spun away. Joran stared in disbelief. You? Fight. She didn't answer. She just handed him a new clip for his rifle. Together, they pushed forward. 2 fighters from 2 different worlds, but both with everything to lose. They fought not to survive, but to protect. The third mercenary tried. To flee Sira through the blade. It struck true. He dropped like a stone. Silence returned. Smoke rose from the rocks. Ash floated through the air like snow. Joran leaned against the wall, panting. Sira wiped her blade clean. Their eyes met. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I've had worse. She almost smiled. Later, Rain opened the lower deck door. He saw the bruises. The broken helmet at Joran's feet. But then he saw his mother standing tall. He ran to her, hugged her tight. She knelt, held him close. I told you, she whispered. I'd come back. Joran sat on the ground, arms resting on his knees. Rain walked over and sat beside him. He didn't draw this time. Didn't hum. He just said quietly, You didn't leave. Joran looked at him, surprised. It was the first real sentence the boy had spoken. No, Joran replied. I never will. That night, Sira looked out at the stars. Joran stood beside her. They'll send more. She said, Let them, he replied. You still have time to walk away. He turned to her. You and Rain aren't my cargo anymore. She met his eyes. Then what are we? He didn't answer right away. He just reached for the controls and erased the original delivery order. Then he whispered, You're the reason I still fight. The moon behind them faded into black. The smoke, the broken helmets, the blood all left in silence. Joran, Sierra. And Rain were now flying toward a system that didn't appear on any standard map. It was once used by smugglers and retired miners, then abandoned when the fuel ran dry. To most, it was worthless. But to Joran, it was something else, a place no one would look. A place where people who didn't belong anywhere else might finally belong to each other. As the wren glided through a thick blue nebula, Joran pointed toward a small blinking shape in the distance. There, he said, Old station, no guards, no systems, just walls, gravity, and silence. Sierra stood behind him. It looks broken. Joran smiled. So am I, but I still work. They docked with a loud hiss. The air inside was thin, but breathable. Lights flickered. The walls were rusted. Gravity pads buzzed under their feet. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't clean. But it was theirs. Rain stepped inside slowly, holding his mother's hand. He looked around, then up at Joran. Is this home? Joran paused. It can be, if you want it. Rain thought for a moment, then nodded. The first few days were quiet. Joran worked non-stop repairing the solar panels, fixing cracked pipes, testing filters. Sierra helped without being asked. She cleaned old rooms, organized supplies, cooked strange but delicious food. Rain painted the walls, not with words but with pictures, stars, hands, trees, a ship, and 3 people standing together. One tall, one with long hair, one small smiling. Stared at it for a long time. Is that us? Rain didn't speak. He just handed Joran a brush. At night, Sierra taught Rain words from her language. Sometimes she taught Joran too. He struggled with the soft sounds, the curved phrases. Rain giggled every time he got it wrong, and Joran never minded. One evening, while they all sat together near the engine room, a small fire heater crackled beside them. The lights were dim. Rain was fast asleep in a blanket pile. Snoring softly, Sierra leaned back against the wall. You're different now, she said. Joran looked up. How? When I first saw you, you were empty. Eyes sharp but soul quiet. Like someone waiting to be told what to do. Joran nodded. That's what soldiers do. She shook her head gently. Not anymore. Joran stood and walked to the control panel. He pulled out a long metal bar, a rusted sign from the old station. It read, Oh, entry property of Outland. CCUREWI. He grabbed a tool and began scratching letters across it. Sierra watched quietly. When he was done, he held it up. The old message was gone. Now it said HOME1. He hung it near the entrance door. A few days later, Joran set up a garden system using old hydro tubes. Rain planted seeds he found in an old crate. They didn't know what would grow, but they smiled anyway. Sierra sat by the window one night, looking out at the stars. Her fingers traced the glass. This place isn't beautiful, she whispered, but it's warm and safe and honest. Joran handed her a mug of hot synth tea. Sounds like you're describing yourself. She smiled, truly smiled for the first time in weeks. Later, Joran found Rain in the hall, looking at the ship's old star map. He knelt beside him. You thinking about traveling again? Rain pointed to a small glowing dot far across the galaxy, then said softly, Others like us. Out there. Stared at the map. He knew what the boy meant. Aliens left behind. Widows. Orphans. Refugees. People labeled cargo instead of human. People like Sierra, like Rayn. He walked back into the common room. Sierra looked up from where she sat sewing a torn coat. I think we're not done, Joran said. With what? With saving people. Sierra didn't answer right away. Then she stood and walked over to the control panel. She placed her hand on the navigation console. "Then let's fix the engines," she said, and just like that, plan changed. Home wasn't a place they'd found. It was something they were building, as Joran powered up the ship's long-range scanners. He looked out at the station one last time, then he whispered to himself, "This isn't the end. This is the beginning." Asterisk. They were careful. They changed flight paths, used old trade lanes, hid behind cold moons, but even the best hiding places don't stay hidden forever. Joran had just installed a new engine filter when the warning light blinked. Red on the console, incoming signal. Not a bounty hunter this time. This one had an official. Tag. Alliance patrol ship, code 7 clearance. He stared at the blinking dot. That was military grade. They didn't come this far out, unless someone sent them. Sira entered the control room with Rain. She saw the light on the screen and froze. "Who are they?" "Government," Joran said quietly. "But not just a scanner ship. They came with purpose." Rain tugged on his sleeve. "Are they bad people?" Joran looked into the boy's eyes. "I don't know yet." The patrol ship hailed them. "This is Captain Reese of the Alliance Peace Division. You're carrying an unregistered vessel with undeclared life forms. Prepare to be boarded." Joran didn't respond. Instead, he sent back a signal. "Ship is in repair mode. Life support fragile. Boarding not advised." There was a pause. Then a short reply. "Will come in light." Oh, one officer. No weapons. They docked an hour later. Joran told Sira to stay in the crew quarters with Rain, but she refused. "If someone's deciding what we are," she said, "they should see us as we are." The hatch opened. The man who stepped in wasn't what Joran expected. He looked clean. Young, not much older than 30. His uniform was neat, but his boots were scratched. Like someone who'd walked too many hallways alone. "Captain Reese," he said. Joran replied. "This is Sira, and the boy's name is Rain." Reese glanced at them, then turned back to Joran. "You know why I'm here?" "I do." Reese nodded. "The Alliance received a report. You broke contract. Transported alien subjects. Refused. Return. That's a crime." Joran folded his arms. "Is compassion a crime now?" Reese didn't answer. They sat around the metal table. Rain drew on a scrap of paper. Sira stayed close. Reese asked questions. Where were they from? Were they dangerous? Did Rain show any signs of mutation? Had Joran been threatened or manipulated? Joran laughed at that last one. "They didn't ask me for anything," he said. "I offered. That's the difference." Reese tapped his data pad. "I'm supposed to bring them back," he said. "Or at least flag your ship." And Joran asked. Reese looked at Rain. 3 stick figures again. 3 stick figures again. But this time, one wore a uniform as. Reese stared at it. "Is that me?" Rain nodded, said softly. "He draws what he sees. It's not what he's told." Silence filled the room. Then Reese closed his pad and stood. "No one's tracing me out here," he said. "You've got a few hours before I report anything." Joran stood too. "That's not protocol." "No," Reese said, "but not everything. Human can be written into a law book." As he reached the hatch, he turned back. "There are others like them, scared. Alone. You planning to keep helping?" Joran looked at Sira. She met his eyes, then he said yes. Reese nodded once. "Maybe we'll meet again. Maybe I'll pretend not to see you next time too." The hatch closed. The patrol ship lifted away that night. Joran sat outside the ship on a metal crate, staring at the stars. Sira walked out and sat beside him. "You trusted him?" she said. "Only for a moment," Joran replied. "But sometimes a moment is enough." She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "If they come again, and it's not him, will you run?" Joran shook his head. "No, not anymore. If they come for us, they'll find something they didn't expect." Smiled softly. "What's that?" He looked at her and said, "A family, willing to fight back." The stars stretched wide across the sky. Not cold anymore, just quiet. Joran stood outside the Wren, hands dusty, shirt torn, grease on his face. He had just fixed the final vent in the rear solar array. Old ship was still ugly, but it flew. Better than ever. Inside, Rain's laughter echoed through the halls. Not humming. Not whispering. Not silence. Real laughter. Sierra sat at the central table, sewing new clothes from old flight uniforms. Her hands moved slow but skilled. She glanced up as Rain ran past, chasing a floating repair drone. He wasn't scared now. Wasn't hiding. He was alive. Joran walked in, wiping his hands with a cloth. "You wore him out?" he asked. Sierra smiled. Other way around. They shared a small laugh, light, easy, like old friends, like something better than survival. Later that night, Joran stood at the window in the control room. Watching the stars shift, he remembered how empty space had felt before. Every job, every run, every station, it had all felt like a slow death. But now it felt like breathing again. He didn't hear Sierra come in. She stood beside him in silence, then said softly, "You gave us a place. You gave Rain a future." Joran shook his head. "No, I didn't save you. You saved me." Sierra looked confused. He turned toward her. "I was a soldier, then a smuggler, then just a ghost in a ship. I had no reason left, no direction." Nodded toward the back, where Rain was still laughing in the distance. "That boy showed me the one thing war and time never taught me." Sierra stepped closer. "What's that?" Joran smiled, eyes shining. "How to live again." The next morning, a transmission came through. From someone far away, a small colony on the edge of a dying system. A woman's voice, "Please. We have alien children taken from the camps. They're sick, scared. We need safe passage off-world. No one will help us." Joran listened. So did Sierra, and they looked at each other. He didn't ask if she wanted to go. She didn't ask if he needed to. They both understood. Within the hour, Ren lifted off. Rain sat in the co-pilot seat, his feet dangling, eyes wide with excitement. He looked at Joran. "Where are we going?" Joran smiled. "Somewhere someone needs us." Rain nodded, then pointed to the sky. "Then we go fast." Joran laughed. "Captain's orders?" Rain puffed out his chest. "Co-captain." Sierra chuckled from behind them. As the ship jumped to light speed, Joran felt something settle in his chest. Not fear. Not anger. Peace. Sometime later, they reached the colony. It was worse than they expected. Burned shelters, scared faces. No supplies. Children barely old enough to speak. Joran stepped off the ramp first. He had no flag, no badge, no power. But he opened his arms and said, "We're here. Let's go." Some cried, some stared. But one by one, they climbed aboard. Sierra gave food. Rain handed out blankets, and when it was over, when the engines fired again and the colony shrank into starlight, there was silence. Not the cold kind, the sacred kind. Later that night, a small girl approached Joran. She had no name, just a broken bracelet and a scar across her cheek. She held up a piece of scrap metal she'd drawn on. 3 figures, Joran, Sierra, Rain, then a fourth, herself. He looked at her, eyes soft. "You want to stay?" She nodded. Sierra walked over and knelt beside her. "Then you're family now." And just like that, the crew grew. Not for money. Not for mission. But for meaning. People across space began whispering. A ship that appeared when no one else would. A man with a scar and a heart full of fire. An alien woman who fought without hate. A child who once never spoke but now led with drawings and courage. Some called them rebels. Some called them liars. But those they helped, they called them something else. Dash home. Joran sat in the engine bay, watching Rain teach the new girl how to draw stars. He leaned back against the wall. Sierra sat beside him. "We'll always be running," she said. Joran nodded. "Then let's make the running worth it." She smiled. "You're not who you were, Joran." He looked at her. "No," he said. "I'm something better." And the galaxy never forgot the man who was told to sell a widow and her child, but chose instead to become their family.